Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Square Green Podcast, everybody. Today is episode number 30, and we're on our way to 1 million subscribers. We only need 1 million more. We have the Texan, Jim Hoffarth, Classics champion. We have Bobby D, the Bruiser Brody Cup champion, 2 times consecutive. Should be there next week. And our special guest is Nick Ridenour.
How you doing, guys?
Doing pretty good.
Same thing here. Yeah, same thing here. Just chilling on a Sunday night.
That's what we try to do too. Just chill out. Nick, I'm glad we got you on because, man, your whole life story is involving wrestling.
Oh yes.
So let me get from the start. How did you become a fan of wrestling? Were you a fan of wrestling? And eventually we'll work in how you got into the business. But at what age were you started being a fan of wrestling?
Oh God. As long as I can remember watching the television with 9 of us kids, I'm the youngest. Back before I watched wrestling, my dad and mom moved out to Oakville, and they were next door neighbors, the Luthez. And my dad was really good friends with Luthez. And on Sundays, Lou would come over. My 2 oldest sisters were born. This was like in the late 50s. He would come over and actually borrow my 2 oldest sisters so they could have barbecue on Sundays and they go swimming. So because he didn't have kids at the time. So that was their enjoyment on Sundays. My dad became really good friends with Lou. And afterwards, my dad's house got flooded out and he moved to Lime. And then we moved out here towards Heinemani. And he became good friends with Joe Schember. Joe Schember was a senior ref back in the 50s and 60s for Sam Munchnick. Wow. And once a year, when Wrestling at the Chase went on vacation, they would do a benefit show down at Heinemani. And it would be supportive of all the kids that got to play baseball down at Heinemani Field. And they would bring in Sam's crew. Joe Schember would bring in with Sam, he would bring in Dick the Bruiser, Pat O'Connor, the Blackjacks, Bobby Heenan, a star-studded lineup back in the day. And wow. When he would have that event once a year, there was 9 of us kids. Joe would round up all the neighborhood kids to help set the ring up, put the chairs out. My oldest sisters, they all did the women's locker room. Betty Nicolai and Moolah and all them wrestled down there, so they got to do the locker room for the girls. But they would draw a pretty good crowd down there. So we were always fans of theirs. And I can remember when I was 4 years old, we all were watching wrestling. I always remember just watching wrestling when I was a kid on Sunday. And we would go to church, we'd come home, we'd catch the end of roller derby, and then wrestling would come on. And that's how we knew, growing up. We really didn't have very much growing up. We didn't have stuff that other kids got, because my dad only made so much money, and support 11 people in the family, you really didn't have much. And then when we got to work for Joe down at Heinemani, he would round us all up. He would give us all 50 cents, a free soda, and free tickets to get into the show. So that's pretty basically how I've gotten started in the business. I always loved it. We all sat around TV, watch wrestling. You think somebody was getting murdered in our house because on Sundays, you'd have 11 people in our house screaming at the television set. That's how life was on Sundays at our house. And eventually, everybody became older and they all moved out. And you got to figure I'm the youngest. So I continuously watched wrestling while everybody else left in the family. So that's basically how I started watching wrestling. And later on in life, when I became a teenager and I was in junior high, Lee Warren was my wrestling coach and gym coach in junior high, which was, wow. I walked in the classroom and here he was and going, that's Lee Warren from Wrestling at the Chase. He's my coach. It was like a dream come true when you were in school. And he knew I loved wrestling. So that's how I got started that early, and I became a stronger fan as years went on. Watched it until Wrestling at the Chase went off the air when Vince McMahon took over the show back in late '83, and I was fortunate enough to go to all some of the Wrestling at the Chase tapings as a young kid because, like I said, Lee Warren was my wrestling coach. He used to give us free tickets to get in. Later in life, when it did switch over to Vince, Lee still worked for them. He ended up jumping ship and working for Vince as a part-time ref. And to promote the show, he would give us kids a bunch of cards to put out. They were the mailers.
Okay.
And he would give us mailers that passed out at the door. And when he gave us mailers, he would give us free tickets to get in. So that happened earlier in the life, like in '83. And when I graduated from high school, or before I graduated from high school, we all got our driver's license. And we became a little bit smart. We ended up going out to the Keel on a backstage door where all the wrestlers went in. And it was on Market Street. And we would ask some of the wrestlers if they need rides out to the hotel, which most of them did. Most of them were cheap, didn't want to pay for a taxi cab to drive all the way out to the Marriott. It was like $15 at the time. That was a lot of money back then, back in the mid-'80s. So we did that for quite a while, and always stood outside the stage door out there, and I've seen a lot of stuff happening out there. I've seen during the wintertime when it was snowing, there was a bunch of, say, neighborhood kids downtown. I guess they lived in the projects, but they were all throwing snowballs at each other. So anyway, a cab pulls up, and Kim Duck and Mr. Fuji walk out of their car, and they were pulling their suitcase out of the back of the trunk. And all of a sudden, two of these kids made snowballs, and they put rocks in them, and they threw the snowballs and smacked Mr. Fuji upside the head with a snowball with a rock in it. And all you heard was them cussing in this language. They dropped their suitcases. They chased the kids down the street. And I'm standing there by myself by his stage door. Everybody else went in. And their suitcases are in the middle of the street. The cab takes off. So I says, well, I guess I'll walk over and pick their suitcases up and put them over by the stage door. So I finally picked them up, put their suitcase by the stage door, and a half hour later they came back. They were gone for quite a while looking for these troublemakers.
Wow. Never got home, did they?
So that was one of the earlier stories that I have waiting outside for the. But there was a lot of stories I can tell you waiting out there. I mean, a lot of different stuff that went on. But that's basically what we did when we were growing up as teenagers. We always wait out there for the wrestlers to come out and see if they need lifts out to the hotel, to the airport, and back. And it really helped us, you know. It actually helped me get my foot in the door a little bit with these guys. Always wait out there to put chairs out, ask, you know, supervisor in the back if you need help putting chairs up. They always let us come in and they give us free tickets to get in. And we got to mingle with some of the guys in the back. So it was pretty interesting. Basically, you know, during that time, I ended up knowing Linda Rufa. She was the photographer for Japan Pro Wrestling. And we always helped her with her suitcases in. She had like 3 or 4 bags, and we helped her with her bags in at the door. We became good friends, and she's seen some of my work that I did because I worked at a company that did embroidery. And she goes, I know somebody's looking for some stuff. I go, well, who is it? She goes, Teddy Long. I'm going to hook you up with him. So she hooked me up with him back in 1985. And I started doing stuff for him and designed some Doom jackets for him and did stuff for him. And then she hooked me up with Gary Juster. Gary Juster was the promoter for WCW back then, NWA. So he basically hooked me up with, like, got on the phone with me, called me up, say, hey, we're having an event, like, say, next month. If you put 500 posters out, I'm not going to give you money, but I'll give you 80 tickets. So he would give me 80 tickets, and I would put those posters out. I got some of those still today. Thank God for my nephew, because he always helped me out, and he kept a couple of them for me, and, you know, saved them for me. So I used to do that for him and put those posters out, and I did that for quite a while. I did that for like 7 years straight, and I ended up knowing all the guys in the back and, you know, getting hooked up with everybody, and everybody knew me.
Yeah.
In the back. So,
Nick, did you sell the tickets? Because he gave you 80. Did you say?
He gave me 80 tickets. What I would do is I would give them to like 7-Eleven, so they could put the posters in their windows. I give them to the bikers, mainly the bikers down the street from us, because the bikers love wrestling. So I would give them half the tickets, and they take half the posters and put them out for me. So basically, we put them on telephone poles, and we put them everywhere. I did that for a good 7 years.
Wow.
So doing all that, I did that until probably about 93. But during that time, I was telling Gary about putting a pay-per-view here because WWF at the time, they stopped coming to St. Louis as far as pay-per-views. But they were having their events here once a month, once every 2 months, and WCW was having theirs once every 2 months. So we had a good 12 shows here in St. Louis between the two. And it was like a little competition. So I did that, and during that time, he brought in Starrcade 90. And I got a phone call from Don Glass. Don Glass was the St. Louis promoter for WCW at the time under Gary Juster. And Don Glass called me up one day and says, "Hey, we need some help down here. You want to come on down?" And I says, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "I want you to park cars for all the wrestlers." So I get down there, and Doug Dillinger was in charge that day because Don had something else to do. It was during the pay-per-view. And Doug Dillinger came up to me and goes, "Here, I'm going to give you $6,000. I need to get 70 parking places for the wrestlers next to the Kiel Auditorium." So he gave me $6,000. He trusted me. He gave me, and I didn't even know Doug Dillinger. I knew of him. He didn't know of me. But, word of mouth back there, they knew that I was a good person. So he gave me $6,000. I went ahead and got 70 parking places, and I go up to Doug. I says, "Hey, Doug," I says, "how am I going to park all these cars for all these guys?" He goes, "Well, call your friends up." So anyway, I called my girlfriend at the time, and I got a hold of my brother-in-law, which he thought I was bullshitting. And I said, "Steve," because he just met my sister and then my cousin. I had like 5 people I called up. So they all came down, they parked the cars, and I already had tickets. I had front row tickets to this already. So I'm not going to let my front row tickets go to waste. So I says, "You guys park the cars. I'm going to go sit at my seat, and I'll see you guys afterwards." So after the show was over with, I go in the back, and Doug Dillinger looks at me and he goes, "You did a pretty good job parking these cars." I said, "Thank you." He goes, "Here, it's $500. So he gives me $500. I put it in my pocket. It's the first time I ever got money from them. It was a funny story. So back in 93, I think all that ended when Eric Bischoff took over the promotion. They didn't need that anymore. They didn't need no posters put out, none of the stuff backstage. So, and I was still in good contact with Teddy Long at the time. And I opened up my own company, my own embroidery company in 94. And I worked at my shop for quite a while. And I get a phone call from Teddy Long in 96. And he's saying, hey, playa. He says, I'm leaving WCW. I go, "Why are you leaving WCW?" He goes, "Because I can't stand it there no more. With all the politics and stuff going on." He says, "I'm leaving." I said, "Well, good luck. I hope everything turns out right for you." So anyway, 4 months pass. He gets a job there. He calls me up, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I know 2 guys here, and we know you do really good work on shirts. You got your own company. You get hooked up with these 2 guys here. They'll take care of you." And it ended up being Dave and Earl Hebner.
Oh.
So I says, "Teddy, go ahead and give my number. Have him call me." So I get a telephone call the next day, and it was Earl and Dave, and they were on the phone going, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I go, "Good. I heard you guys doing embroidery." I says, "Yeah, I've been doing it for quite a while." "Well, make us some stuff up and come to the next show. We'll get you in." So that was back in 97. So I made a bunch of nice looking shirts, polos, and brought them to the show, and man, they ate it up alive. They loved it. So he goes, Dave and Earl goes, "Well, if you make some of the stuff up for some of these other guys here, they love it because most of the stuff they get here comes from Asia or China, and the buttons fall off."
Yeah.
So yeah, sure. So I started whipping up a bunch of stuff for the guys backstage. God, I was going like once a month, once every 2 months. I was going to Raw or SmackDown. I was probably going to about 10 shows a year with them out of town, either Columbus, Ohio, Memphis. I try to stay pretty close around St. Louis, within 300-400 miles. I wouldn't go any further.
Okay, so they didn't hire you to come to all the shows, just the
No,
ones that
I
you
just did it
could-
myself. I did it on my own. I paid my own way, and I really didn't make anything on the shirts. I just did it for the boys, because I loved wrestling. I loved hanging out with the guys and stuff. And I did that for quite a while with Earl and Dave. Dave was really a super nice guy. out of both. Don't tell Earl, but Dave was the nicer one out of both. But Dave and Earl, they took care of me. You know, we were like brothers for a long time, and God, I did that and toured with them until about 90 or 2004, and I approached Earl. I said, Earl, I says, you know, I always tell the truth, and I'm not going to lie. I says, you know, you're getting up there in age. I said, what's going to happen 5 or 10 years when you got to retire and you don't have nothing? How about you and I pitch in and we open up a wrestling store? And he goes, that sounds pretty interesting. Maybe I might think about it. So I get a phone call the next week. He goes, yeah, sure. How much it's going to cost? So I looked at all the pricing and everything, and I think it was like a total of $24,000.
Yeah, Nick,
Yes.
real quick, the severe thunderstorm and everything, Bobby and both Jim are having issues. They're coming in and out.
Okay. Did you want to still talk to you or what? Oh, here we go. So anyway, in 2005, Earl and I opened up that wrestling store. It was March or April of 2005. We opened up a wrestling store out here in Lime. And it was a pretty good store. I called Earl and says, what are we going to do to promote the store? He goes, well, why don't we bring in somebody that can draw? So he made a phone call, and it was Batista. Batista was so nice. Batista came in and practically wanted to do it for nothing, but I give him $500, and I made these nice embroidered WWE wrestling shirts for him. And it was for him only. I didn't do it for everybody. I just did it for the guys that worked for them, and I didn't make any money. You know, I practically give most of the stuff away. So there was a couple of shirts left from the store, and Batista came in. We did a big line. We had a big line for autographs and stuff, and we probably drew in about 1,000 people that came in that day. We didn't make any money. It was just to promote the store. So
it sounds like through your shop, though, the common theme was you did everything for everybody else. You didn't make any money.
I didn't make no money. I just did it for them. So anyway, time passed, a couple weeks. Everything was going good. And I'm not going to bash anybody because I don't do this. But anyway, I had somebody that came into my store, and he was wanting some WWE shirts for his Little League team. And he said, the Little League team down this way. And I said, no, the Little League team is down that way. And I approached him, and I was being honest. I said, hey, I know who you are. You work for the front office. He wouldn't say anything. I said, I don't forget a face. I know who you are.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, and it was my fault. I don't lie. I will sell you a shirt that I already have here. You take it back. You get permission from WWE. You bring the form back in, and then I'll do them for you. But I did sell him the shirt. That was the mistake that I made. I sold him a damn shirt. So 2 weeks passed. Earl calls me up, and he said he got fired. I said, Earl, what did you get fired? Because you sold the guy a shirt. Actually, he said I sold him a bunch of merchandise. I said, Earl, I sold him one shirt. And I sold him a couple things in the store that was licensed and everything. It was just one shirt. And I had him, told him to let me know if they were interested, and we would make more, but he had to come in with a signed signature from WWF at the time, WWE. So anyway, Earl says, no, I got fired over this and this and that. I said, Earl, all I did was sell the guy one shirt. Yeah, but you sold him a shirt. I said, I told him, and I knew he was from the front office. Evidently, the word got back to me, and I know a lot of people. I've been in this business for a long time. Evidently, the guy went back, went to Vince's office, and lied to Vince and said that I had skids of illegal merchandise in my store. Everything in my store was licensed from WWE other than that one freaking shirt that I sold to this fella. Now, it's nice to say so on this issue. Every time I turn around, we're getting bashed. The Hebners are getting bashed, and I'm getting. Dave and Earl never stole a thing from them. We never stole anything. I made enough money. Let me tell you something. I earned, in my own business, I earned $250,000 a year at the time. I didn't need to pirate any freaking shirts. You know? I made really good money. And anybody come back and say we were thieves and anything, they're lying, they're lying piece of shit. You know? They don't know the whole story. I was there. They weren't. I knew the whole thing. And this guy that left, shame on him. You know? Shame on him for lying. You know, that wasn't right. You got two guys that worked, and it was that was honest to Vince and would have taken a bullet for Vince. You know, it was just a bunch of lies that went on, and it continued. You know, I bought Earl. I paid Earl's money back that he put in the store because I told him, I said, anything happens, I'll pay you back, Earl. Anything, which I did. I paid him every single cent back to him. So I ended up going to the bank. I took another loan out, and Earl calls me up and he goes, "Are you going to close the store?" I says, "Yeah, I'm going to close the store. But you know what, Earl? I'm opening up a bigger store." So I opened up a bigger store out in the mall. But everything, everything in my store was licensed. So I open up the store in the mall, and it starts all over again. They're coming to my store, and I knew they were spies. I had somebody come in and say, "Well, we got these shirts we make down in Mexico. All you have to do is put tags in." It says, "No." I says, "No, I don't want to do this. Please, just leave the door. Everything I have in here is licensed. I get off Shop Zone, and I'm being honest, I buy everything from Shop Zone, and I marked it up. I got all their special deals that were half price and stuff. So I doubled the price. And if I was going to buy a new shirt, I'd buy the new shirt. Let's say the shirt was like $12.99. I got one free. Well, I marked it up to $24.99 because I had to pay mall rent, which was very expensive at the time. But everything I did in that store, everything was licensed from there on out. I never touched stuff. I destroyed their tape that I did for them, their design, their digitizing design I did for the embroidery. That was all destroyed. Everything was destroyed. Anything that we bought, we sold in that store was actually signed, licensed and registered. And most of it was from Shop Zone. I ordered a lot of stuff from Shop Zone. And I also did a lot of stuff with Larry Matisic because he owned the rights to the Wrestling at the Chase. So we did a lot of Wrestling at the Chase DVDs. We sold a lot of those, a lot of Wrestling at the Chase shirts. I went to other factories, which they made the masks, autographs we bought, just certain things like that we sold in the store. So we did pretty good there for our first year in the store, but it got pretty bad there at the store, though. I mean, I hate to go in detail, but it got really bad for dishonest people, and I had to let the store go. You know, it was just, it broke my heart because it's something I, always loved to do.
Was it just internal problems, or was it?
It was both. It was both. It was every time I turned around, it was something. It was like a nightmare. Every time I turned around, it was this going on, or somebody did this, or somebody's coming after me for this, or just everything. It was just like mayhem. I says, I can't deal with this anymore. I've got enough problems,
Wow.
And I was trying to make ends meet, and it even got worse. It got worse where I feel like 8 payments behind on my house. I said, this ain't gonna happen. So I had to sell it and get out, and I had to file bankruptcy, and that took care of most of the problems that I had. And I lost most of my digitizing overseas because the internet came out, and they were undercutting me a dime on a dollar. So instead of making $250,000 a year, I'm only making $20,000 a year, if that, at the time.
Wow.
So it really went down the drain. So I ended up moving back in my house, and I had to buy more sewing machines. I only had 2, so I'm up to 5 and ready to get 6. So I'm doing pretty good again. Pretty much back up at the top of the mountain like I was at the beginning.
So that business is still doing good? It's still good?
My business is doing good. My embroidery business is going. We always had an embroidery business, but at the time I wasn't doing that much embroidery. It was all digitized. What I would do is somebody would give me artwork, let's say out of town, and before the internet, I had a plotter, which I plot the stitches on this board, and I would feed it in the computer, and I would clean it up, and I would save it on the floppy, and I would ship them out by mail, and a customer would get it, and they could stick it in their sewing machine, and it would sew any design that they wanted. I'm probably almost up to 100,000 corporate logos right now that I've digitized over the years. So I've been doing this.
For all you kids at home,
I was the best in the business. Huh?
I said, for all the kids at home, a floppy disk is like a USB drive.
It is. So like I said, when the internet came out, it killed all that. You could transfer your designs like over the internet now. So people are in China and Pakistan and all that. They do all that now, and something that I would charge $150 for, they charge $10. I can't spend 2 hours making $10.
Yeah.
So it forced me to go out and get more embroidery machines for the business. So I ended up doing that. So afterwards, after Earl left, WWE. He ended up getting a job at TNA, and we were still good friends. And Dave and I were still good friends. But there was one story that I got to tell you when we were in the store. I had that mall store there. That Dave and I were really close. We became even closer friends after all the stuff went on because they accused him because his name was on a business card and it wasn't supposed to be there. It was supposed to be Earl's name at the time, and Dave got fired over that because it was a business card with his name on it, my store name. That's how he got fired after Earl, and he was there like a good year after Earl was fired. So I always brought Dave in because I felt bad for him. He didn't have no source of making an income like Earl. Earl was a construction worker and very good construction worker on top of what he does, as far as refereeing. And Dave couldn't referee anymore. He was, getting kind of old and he had arthritis real bad. He could still do it a little bit, but not as good as he used to do.
Right.
So I brought him in one day, and Harley Race came in with Ted DiBiase that day. So I brought Dave, and I said, Dave, you want to come in? They're working a couple shows, and Harley wants you to work one of the shows down in Eldon. He goes, yeah, man. So he goes, well, I got a meeting with Vince the day before. I said, well, that's fine. He goes, well, I'll see you there. So I brought Dave, and Dave comes walking through my door at the shop, and he was like, hit his head down on the ground. I mean, he was literally almost in tears, crying. I go, Dave, what's wrong? He goes, man, I don't want to talk about it. I says, you can tell me anything you want. I'm your brother. You can tell me anything. So he was all really upset what Vince was telling him. And I didn't want to go in detail or nothing, but he was actually crying his eyes out. And he goes, I would have taken a bullet for that man. And I tried to get my job back. And I'm not going to say anything what Dave said, but Dave was really, really upset and crying. And it was nothing but a bunch of freaking lies, a bunch of snakes that went behind his back. People that didn't like Dave and Earl. Dave and Earl weren't just referees there at the time. They were boss. When Vince wasn't there and Stephanie wasn't there, Earl was boss. Earl took roll call, and Dave paid people out of a briefcase. And he always kept like over $20,000 in the briefcase. So if any wrestler needed advancement, Dave would pay him out of the briefcase. So that's what Dave's job. And Dave would do promotional jobs too, taking the guys when they were in town, taking them to autograph signings and stuff. So that was Dave's duty. And I've heard a lot of stuff back there. I don't name names, but they all wanted Dave's job when he retired and just everything. And I never said anything, but I heard some stuff that people were saying behind their backs and stuff, which wasn't really nice, And Earl covered a lot of those guys. Earl was so nice. A lot of those guys didn't show up on time, and Earl kind of covered for him. And he could have lost his job over that. But Earl did a lot of stuff for people. So did Dave over there, And they want to talk about people stealing. I've seen guys walk out of there with, when they get those promotional chairs, they were walking out with 10, 20 chairs. And I had one, I paid for one. I said, here, I'll give you money for this. Who do I pay? Well, they give me one because, I helped them. I used to help them out with the ring. And I used to go to Walmart and we get the gimmicks, like put underneath the ring, like the kendo sticks, trash cans, even a turkey. I always go with Chad Patton and Jack Doan. We always go get the gimmicks. Sometimes Howard Finkel, or not Howard Finkel, but I can't think of his name. Short guy with glasses. Harvey Whippleman. He would go too. So we would all go to Walmart and get the gimmicks and stuff, and then I'd help Jack and Chad put the ring up. So they usually have the referees put the ring up, WWE years ago, WWF. So we did that. But I got a lot of stories I can tell, but I'd be here all night.
And that's fine. But so my voice is really bad. Is it bad to you guys too?
No.
Oh.
No, you're fine.
No, you're fine.
It's really muffled on my end. All right. So Earl got fired because he was tied to your business, and you sold a shirt to a gentleman who worked for the WWF.
Yes, and I know he worked there. I don't forget a face. I'm an artist. I do not forget a face. And I've seen him there at WWE plenty of times backstage walking around. And he came to my shop and I go, what the hell is he doing here? And I knew he was from there, and I knew he's, wanting to get a shirt. So I trusted him. I said, just go back and get permission. I can do it for your WWE's ball team or whatever. Yeah, sure. But you got to get permission first. And that was the whole thing. He took that shirt back and went to Vince and lied and said I had skids of illegal merchandise in my store, which I did not have. I had one stinking shirt left from Batista when he came in my store. And that's how I repaid Batista. I give him some money, and I made him some shirts, some real nice polo shirts with the logo on it, which he really loved, you know.
Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, did Vince ever contact you personally and ask
No,
you your side?
no. That I had to call somebody, and I had a cease and desist letter. So I had to fill a cease and desist letter out, which I did. And they said they're going to contact my lawyer, or they're going to have their lawyers come after him, which never happened. I mean, I guess they were nice enough not to mess with me, because I told them, I said, I don't want nothing to do with this stuff anymore. I said, I destroyed the tape. I got rid of it. I'm not designing any shirts anymore for you guys, unless it's, the signature with a letter, whatever, of approval. I won't do any of that. I did during a time when I worked for, going back. I didn't work for them personally. I went there as a fan and did the shirts for wrestling, but at that time they needed some emergency patches done, because in 2001 when they were switching over to WWF, they needed some referee shirts. So I did all the patches for them, and Stephanie got those in Indianapolis. I literally drove them out there, so they'd have them for the show. So
Okay. So that's how Earl got fired, but Dave just got fired just because his name was
from
on
a
your business cards?
just the name on a business card that wasn't supposed to even be there, and it was an excuse to get them fired. But I talked to Harley, and God bless his soul, I love Harley to death. And Harley came up to me, and he goes, the reason why that happened is because those two guys were getting old, and they needed them gone. That's exactly what came out of Harley's mouth. It wasn't you, it was them, because Dave and Earl were getting up there in age, and they didn't want them there anymore.
That makes
They
sense.
was
I mean,
looking
that
for
was
an
the
excuse
same
at that
reason they
point.
got rid of JR.
Yeah. It's so sad how this business operates nowadays. I remember growing up and watching Gene Knitsky and Dick the Bruiser, and they were well into their 60s, and they were still going strong, and they were still doing good, But I
That's
guess
what's
time
crazy.
changes.
Earl and them, they were in all the major main events. I mean, WrestleMania 3, Hogan versus the Giant. Earl was the referee.
Yes.
For the whole twin mix-up, having that match where, they got I guess Earl was the original ref, and then Dave come down and he's all
No, no,
tied
no,
up.
no.
Or was it reversed?
Dave was a senior ref back then before Earl,
Oh,
and Dave was the clean ref, and Earl came down and interrupted. Earl was the
yeah.
evil
Okay.
ref. Yeah.
So all the classics, those two were the guys that were in it. I mean, even the whole screw job,
Yeah.
Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It was Earl that
Earl.
was in the ring,
Earl was in the
and
ring,
he
yeah,
had to
but
pretend that he didn't know anything about it, even though he knew.
right. But all the times we went with them guys, I always rode with them guys. God, I probably say about 15 times, 20 times a year, I would travel with those guys. And that went on for almost 10 years. And
Wow.
the parties and the fun we had with those two guys, Earl and Dave, they were the life of the show. I mean, you went with those guys, you hung with those guys, they were the party. It was so fun. But yeah, later on after that, after all that happened, I had to end up closing that store, and Dave knew it broke my heart that I had to close that store, because he knew how much I loved wrestling. But Earl ended up working with TNA, and I contacted them. I ended up going out to TNA a few times, and they put me to work doing merchandising with Don West and White Tiger and all them. So I did that for quite a while. But after that, I ended up stopping all that stuff in 2013. So that ended up, ended all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but during the time I had that store at the mall, Larry Madison came in, and we brought Rosie in one day. And me and Rosie were really tight friends, probably as close as probably better than Teddy Long. We were really good friends. So I
Wow.
brought Rosie in probably about 8 times to do signings and stuff, and he did very well his first few times there. And Larry Madison came in that day, and I had a whole wall that was empty. And I came up and I approached Larry. I says, Larry, I says, what do you think of the idea about doing a St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame? I said, they all have these Wrestling Hall of Fames everywhere. Why don't we have one here? He goes, that's a pretty good question. He goes, hey, it's somebody that asked me that a couple years ago, but it never happened. I says, but you know, Larry, when I do something, I do it. I don't mess around. I said, I got a store here. I got a wall here. Let's do something. He goes, let me contact Herb Simmons and a few others, and we'll have a meeting. I said, we'll have a meeting back in my store. So a week passed. Larry come in, and here comes Herb Simmons and Keith Soldiers, Folsis Patch, and a couple others. And we had our meeting in the back room, and we're all sitting there looking at each other. I says, guys, we're going to have to put somebody in by acclamation. And then Larry ended up talking, yeah, let's end up putting like 12 in by acclamation, or was it 14? I think it was 14. And we started off with Sam Much, Nick Luthez, Penny Banner, Pat O'Connor, Dick DeBruiser, and the list went on. So we had a meeting. Everything was fine. Larry was leaving, and I says, now, Larry, he says, I don't mess around. I'm going to put this wall up here. So they end up leaving. A week later, I get everything together. I end up getting the letters for the wall and stuff. And I call Larry up. I says, Larry, come on in. He says, why? He says, come on in. I'm going to show you something. So he come in and he goes, oh, my God. He almost was in tears when he seen the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame on my wall there. It looked really nice.
Yeah.
So that's how the Hall of Fame started. So that was that with the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I carried it on ever since,
And
it went from to food show this past year.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I said it went from that to the food show we had.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah, right now we have 47 members as of today.
wow.
And last year I did approach Herb, because we've always had something small over East Cronolette. And I said, Herb, I says, no offense, but we need to step this up. I says, this should be where it should be, right here in St. Louis. We should have the big one here. It shouldn't be up in Iowa or these other places. St. Louis started right here under Sam Muchnick. This was the capital of pro wrestling. So Herb come up to me and talk to me. He says, hey, if you can get a building over here, we'll have a big show. I said, okay. So I saved my money. I went to several places, got pricing. So I priced the Aviator, which they're customers of mine. And guy wanted so much money, I paid him right there, cash down. Herb came in, looked at it. Looks like a pretty good place. Let's have it here. So that's how the Hall of Fame started last year here in St. Louis, as far as the big fan fest that we had. It went from having 4 people in to 50. So
yeah, it was pretty crazy. We were doing podcast after podcast, and we weren't keeping up, because every time we put a podcast out with, all right, the new guy is, such and such. And before that he would even air, there was someone else already being, name dropped that was coming in. I was like, gosh.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to us for that long, I mean, just look over Texan's shoulder right there. That's the poster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did you get one of them? Did you
I
get
did
one
not
of
get
them,
one of
Bobby?
the posters.
I got one for you. I'll bring one with me.
All right.
But anyway,
over this shoulder.
So anyway, Herb goes, how are we going to top this next year? I says, we'll find a way to top it next year. It's going to be hard, but we'll top it next year.
So you're already saying
I know
it's
you
going to be a
say
next
it.
year?
Huh?
I said, I know you can say it, but I heard you have some.
Yeah, so I got a little. I've got a little secret for next year, so I can't spill the beans right now until I never do anything until I know for sure. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up.
Satisfied. I'll be satisfied for what would you say we're having another.
Yeah. But hey, Bobby, your microphone keeps cutting out.
All
Are you
right,
there?
I'll exit out and come back in.
Yeah, your picture keeps freezing too. So
I want to exit out an hour earlier and kind of.
You can pop back in. So, Nick, since you're one of the progenitors of the St. Louis Hall of Fame, when are they going to induct you into the St. Louis
I
Hall
don't.
of Fame?
I don't belong in this Hall of Fame at all. No. This is when Larry and all of us got together on this, we had a stipulation because I wanted to put in Gorgeous George because Gorgeous George was the man in St. Louis. My mom was a kid growing up. She used to throw bobby pins at him. But he goes, we got to make a stipulation. We got to, because if we don't, there's going to be way too many people in this thing. So let's do it during the Sam Muchnick era that's wrestling at the Chase era, from 1959 to 1983. And that's it. Anybody that's done anything in St. Louis from 1959 to 1983 that's done a major role here in St. Louis will be in the Hall of Fame. And there's several people that I want in there that should be in there, but the committee won't allow it, which I think they should be in there. And to name a few, I think Andre the Giant belongs in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. Bobo Brazil belongs in the Hall of Fame. Rufus R. Jones belongs in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. There's countless people that still belong in the Hall of Fame.
So why don't you have a meeting and propose an asterisk category for those that came after the Sam Muchnick era, but still played a critical role in wrestling at the Chase?
Well, we could, but maybe later down the road. But right now, we're just going to focus on those days. But right now, we have the Sam Muchnick Award, which can go to anybody. We have the Lifetime Achievement Award that can go to anybody that's done anything. So we have 2 more awards that can be given away on top of what the wrestlers that wrestled during that time period from 59 to 83 or has done anything in St. Louis between that time period.
Well,
so
on Andre's part, Andre came in through the wrestling at the Chase, right?
Oh yeah, he wrestled there I think a couple times, but he's wrestled at the Keel several times, and he won the first ever Battle Royal here in St. Louis, ever, anywhere, was here in St. Louis. And when he came on TV, it was the biggest thing. Those ratings shot through the roof when he was on that. I remember when I was like 8 years old watching it back in the mid-'70s. Those ratings went through the roof. I went to school, and the kids were even talking about it when I went to grade school. Oh my God, you see that guy on wrestling? These people don't even watch wrestling, at the time. But he was just a freak.
Yeah,
and
larger than life.
Although he only wrestled here maybe about 6 or 7 times during that time period, he was a big draw. And a lot of times he couldn't wrestle because I think he still had health issues back then. I'm not for sure. But during that time period, oh my God, he was in almost every magazine. He was even on my favorite TV program, The $6 Million Man, as Bigfoot. He was a big, big guy, and he was a freak. You never seen a guy that big back then. It was just unheard of. 7'2", 500 pounds. You never seen that back in the early 70s. He was like a freak show coming in.
Yeah, I definitely think he should be in there, and mainly because that was his whole thing. He never stayed in the territory too long. He was always there to increase ticket sales, put asses in seats. 1 or 2 shows and out the door to the next territory. Keep him fresh.
You're right.
Keep him with that. When he comes into town, that oh my God, we got to see this.
Yeah.
So I mean, definitely, he wasn't going to be one of those guys that was here every week wrestling.
I remember I met him a couple times. I met him when we used to take the wrestlers out there later when he wrestled with WWF at the time. And my God, he was so big. And there was a gal that used to take him back and forth. She was a real short, stocky, black-headed gal. I think she was like Italian or something. He would go to the firehouse down at the Marriott and eat downstairs, and he would get 2 big plates of spaghetti. Oh my God! And just polish them off like it was nothing. I think he had a big bottle of wine next to him too. He always drink that wine.
Oh,
but I remember shaking his hands a couple times and going, "Oh my God, this guy's a monster!" His hand would actually cover almost up to my elbow. That's how big his hands were. Really nice guy.
Yeah, I mean,
someone brought that can from this picture where it just engulfs it. I believe I think a mini can or something in the picture.
Yeah. So, other than that, next year
in Iowa, I think, Chris Owens, the gentleman we interviewed, was there as well at that time, and he had different posters, life size that you can stand by and see what your height was compared to Andre. And I think
Oh
Bobby
yeah.
was mentioning the handprint that you can put your hand on. And even people talking about my hands being like frying pans has
Uh-huh.
no comparison to Andre's.
Oh no, he
Uh,
was like I said, he was a freak.
oh yeah,
These guys don't come every day. You know, these are once in a lifetime. Especially wrestling. You know, so. But we have in store for a couple people going in next year. I've mentioned it to Herb, and Herb and I are the only two board members left. Well, Keith Soldiers is still around, but we hardly ever hear of Keith anymore. Real good guy. Used to work with the Post Dispatch. But
yeah.
at one time we had 8 people on the board of directors, and it's just down to Herb and I, and that's it. Um, but I mentioned a couple names to him, which he seems he's on board with. So we'll have to see. I got a couple of surprises for next year. So it's up to the deciding member, Herb. Actually, Herb is the main cheese of this whole thing. So I just feed him the ideas, and I put the Hall of Fame together.
Hey,
You know.
as long as everyone's talking about it, the more people we can get talking about it, the more it'll probably happen again next year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's every May. We do it. We do it on the anniversary of Wrestling at the Chase. Because Wrestling at the Chase started mid-May, 1959. So we carried it on, you know, every year. Which we always had the Bruiser Brody Memorial under Herb. So Herb
yeah.
always has that with his show, and it always goes with the Hall of Fame.
Well,
So
I always talk to Herb about the Iowa, which is the Hall of Fame out there, which was great. I loved it out there. It was a good time, except for I got 2 speeding tickets. I just realized that.
oh no,
Um, yeah, they have cameras on the highway, and it got me going there. So that was a $75 ticket. And I said, well, shoot, if they got me going there, they're going to get me one coming back. And sure enough, a day or two later, another one comes in the mail for me coming home.
where did you
So
get
they
that
got
at?
me
Did you get that
twice.
did you get that over in Illinois or Missouri?
Iowa.
Was it Southern Iowa? Because
Uh, it,
we got a ticket. We got a ticket like 4 years ago up at Keokuk, near Keokuk, Iowa.
oh, it was actually, maybe that is the name of it.
Keokuk,
Uh,
yeah, right there on the border of Missouri and Iowa. That's why we got pulled over.
oh, you got pulled over. I didn't get
Yeah,
pulled over.
we got pulled over.
But I got 76 and a 55 and a 71 and a 50, I think.
Oh, that's
Them
crazy.
bastards. But anyway, before I got
Bunch of
sidetracked,
lawbreakers.
uh, I loved it out in Iowa. There was, it was very cool. You're up close and personal with everyone there. Um, and I looked at Herb and I said, Herb, I think ours was handled better
Yes.
than this year. And you know, uh, Gerald Briscoe, don't hate me on this because you did great out there because I know he's the one that runs the Iowa Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Um, but we had 50 legends in ours. We had it. The legends were out the same day as the wrestling show, and you're able to mingle with them throughout the whole day. Um, I just think, if we could split ours up like they do in the 2 nights, have a special dinner for the Hall of Famers
Yes.
like Iowa does, and then keep the same stuff, the legends and the wrestling show. I think there's no reason why St. Louis wouldn't be as popular as the Iowa or the CAC, and not dogging either one of them because the CAC is a great
It is a great
uh,
organization.
organization to help out the boys. But I've never been to the gathering. Uh,
I am either.
Next year, I think I'm going to try to venture out to that just to see how good that one is. But there's no reason why St. Louis should not have an annual, Hall of Fame, get
You're absolutely
together.
right.
And
This was the mecca of wrestling. Everything should be here. I am
yeah,
just so surprised and so shocked that WrestleMania has never been in St. Louis. It just blows my mind. I go, what are these people thinking? I mean, we used to be the hub of America at once. That's what made us so great. We were the center of the United States. We still are in the center of the United States. And if you want to come to this thing, you've got 30 cities with 100,000 plus people surrounding our city. You know, that's what makes the Cardinals great, because we're in the center of the United States. Everybody get to the Busch Stadium. You know, that thing would sell up probably in 5 minutes if they would have it down to the Dome. Absolutely. But
I would
that's
have no
just
doubt.
us. You know, I don't know what people are thinking, or I don't know. It just blows my mind every time I think about it. And all the
I
great
think it
speakers.
has. I think it has something to do with the McMahons and the past that they have with Herb. And I just think they don't like reliving that. That they relied on Herb to build what they have now.
You're right. I heard that too. I've heard a lot of stuff. Even years
Well,
ago, what happened years ago with Larry and all that,
yeah.
that kind of like put like a sour taste in St. Louis with the WWF and WWE. And I want to get involved with people because I don't do that. But they're missing the boat. If they would have it here, it would be so big. You have Anheuser-Busch here, by God. It's a big corporation that can, advertise for them. You know, there's some
I'll
big
throw this
companies here
out
in
there.
St. Louis. Huh?
You know, I'll throw this out. Back in the day when WWE or F at the time had to come to town, they had to use a promoter's license, and that promoter had to live in the state that the
Mm-hmm.
show was at. And
Yeah.
Herb was the only promoter in Illinois. So anytime they came to Illinois, they would have to use Herb's license. Well,
And
they
Herb gave
kind
them
of
a
get
break
away
on
with
the
that in
pricing too.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Well, in
That was.
Missouri, they just pay the fine.
Yeah.
So there's no reason, because they don't have to depend on Herb now. So there's no reason why they can't have WrestleMania in St. Louis, because they can just walk in and get it. St. Louis would probably bend over backwards for them too.
Oh, I know they would. I just really don't get it. Talking about license over in Illinois. I knew a guy that worked with he was just like me. He's an older guy though. He loved wrestling. He always went to the shows up in Chicago. His name was John Spahn, and he worked for the sheriff's department and worked for some higher ups. But he was the one responsible for getting rid of the Illinois athletic commissioner.
Really?
He absolutely got rid of him. He went to the governor or something, and he knew the governor real well, and they ended up throwing it out. This has been about 20 something years ago, about 25 years ago. This happened. His name was John Spahn, but he ended up becoming good friends with Linda McMahon because of it.
Oh yeah,
So,
I bet.
he's one that ended up gotten rid of the athletic commissioner over in Illinois.
I've kind of tossed on my liking or disliking of the athletics commission. It sucks because you got to, get the physicals, you got to get the blood work done, and got to buy the license. But in the same aspect, most men, and I'm just going to say this for myself, but most men don't like going to the doctors, don't like going to hospitals, don't like getting their blood drawn. So one, if you want to have a license, you have to do this. So that kind of like, it gets us seen. So if there is anything medically wrong with us, we can find out. Two, you're working with someone else, and if it happens to be a little physical and one of you gets busted open or both of you gets busted open, in the state of Missouri, you'll at least have that confidence that there is no bad stuff cross-contaminating each other's blood.
You're right.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, it's a yay and a yin yang type of situation with them.
And another thing, it doesn't saturate the area too.
Right.
There's a lot of people kind of shy away from doing that because of the athletic commissioner. They don't want to deal with all that.
I say, you can just look at how many promotions are in St. Louis versus Southern Illinois, and it's a vastly different number.
It is, absolutely.
I don't know if you guys watched the TV show about Abdul the Butcher that was just on. It was on Vice. What's the name of it? What?
Dark Side of the Ring.
Dark Side of the Ring. Yeah. So they did a episode with Adol the Butcher, and there was a guy that Hannibal that they used
Yeah.
to wrestle all the time and used to cut each other and do everything. But somehow he got hepatitis. I don't know if it was A, B, or C, but he got it. And they actually, follow the trace line down to Adol that he had it as well. And it was a rare form. And that's how they were able to see that he got it from Adol the Butcher. And there was a big lawsuit about it. Hannibal had a WWE contract that he lost. Now that he has hepatitis, he couldn't wrestle anymore. So I mean, the Missouri license protects from that.
You're right. And
Uh,
you want to talk about a story about Abdullah Butcher years ago when I worked with WCW? I think it was back in 87, 86, 87. I walked backstage and I ended up going through the wrong door, and he was in his getting dressed or something. He was screaming at the top of his lungs at me, just jumping up and down. I was freaking out. I'm going, holy shit. So Gary ended up walking. He goes, you're not supposed to be back in this party area. So I said, I know, I made a mistake. I walked through the wrong door. But I think he got kind of freaked out when I walked in his door back. That was one of
was
those
he
stories with him.
screaming English at you, or was he screaming some other foreign language?
He was just screaming.
So that's
You're supposed to be a manly man, and he's screaming like a little girl.
Yeah, I can tell you all kinds of stories. All kinds of stories.
well. How was
Well, we
working for
do have all
TNA?
night, Nick, so let's hear him.
How was working for TNA, Nick?
It was fine. Everybody was cool, but one person. I ain't gonna name no names, but usually when I went there, I worked. I did shirts for a couple of the guys. It wasn't like WWE, WWF years ago where I did for everybody. And I told her, like, I really don't want to get caught up in this stuff anymore as far as being blamed for selling stuff that I don't have, license for,
Right.
But basically I did the merchandise. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was helping put the ring up with Bob Rosen. I always did that with him, help him set the ring up. And if it was something else, I set chairs up. And there was one day they were sold out, and I think it was down in Nashville. And I couldn't get a seat. And I go, well, I'm done with everything. I want to sit down. So usually when I worked with WWE, WWF years ago, we all went to the catering. So I said, well, I'll just go to catering and sit in there and just mind my own business. So I was sitting in there, and the boss comes up, and he just starts screaming at the top of his lungs. And everybody was back there. And I mean, just going off. You ain't supposed to be back here. You ain't supposed to do this. You ain't so. I said, well, usually when I'm, you can't find. I don't give a, just this and that. So evidently, I said, whatever, man. So I ended up leaving, and I told Earl, and Earl says, never mind him. Come to find out, that person got in trouble for stealing $80,000 from embezzling $80,000 from the company.
Woo!
So payback, But he didn't have to yell at me in front of everybody. Hogan and everybody in the back that was sitting there. Made me feel like I was like an inch tall, and I was minding my own business. I wasn't bothering anybody. So, but I always make sure I kept myself busy back there when I worked with places like that with WWE or TNA. I was always busy. I didn't even want to stand around because it was so boring. So I was kept busy. But plenty of stuff. I was always kept in charge of watching the briefcases for Earl and Dave. They had a table set in the back, and one briefcase was Dave, which had $20,000 in. That was an advancement to get all the wrestlers, and the other briefcase was for Howard Finkel. Howard Finkel took charge of all the airline tickets in the back. So they needed somebody to watch the briefcases. And I go up to Earl and I go, Earl, is there really thieves back here? And he goes, oh yeah. I go, you're kidding me. He goes, oh yeah. Believe it or not, there's thieves that come back here. I'm like, holy shit. So I always did that whenever I got done selling my shirts or giving my shirts away, mainly giving them away. Usually I just watched the briefcases in the back.
Wow.
And that was probably almost every time I was back there. And at one time, I got done with some. This is a funny story. When I got done doing what I had to do in the back, I go, "What's next, Dave?" He goes, "Briefcase." Oh, that brief. He goes, "No, a different briefcase." So I go to the table. He pulls out another briefcase, and I go, "What's this for?" He goes, "You'll find out." He goes, "Here, I'm going to give you 16 $100 bills." So he gives me 16 $100 bills, and he goes, "And here's the briefcase. I need you to go to Magic. There's a guy called Magic back there. He's the one who takes the dings out of the trash cans, makes the signs up. They never talk about him though, but he's back there. He's the one who takes care of all the odds and ends stuff
Tables and
back there.
stuff. Yeah.
You know. So I take the Magic, and I knew him real well. I said, "Magic, how you doing?" "Oh, good." And he goes, "Oh, you got the briefcase?" I says, "Yeah." So he opens it up, and he has these paper stacks of papers. They had rubber bands around, and they had super glue, and he was super gluing the $100 bills that I give him. And he had 3 rows of 4, and he put a $100 bill on each one, and he super glued them. So he closed the briefcase, he shook it just to make sure they were all in there tight, and he opened up, one of them came loose, so he super glued it back, waited. He goes, "Okay, it's ready to go." He goes, "I'm going to give you this briefcase back, but I'm going to give you this prop." It was like a little blue prop, the prop underneath the briefcase. He was showing me how to prop it up. He goes, "When a producer calls you, you go in this little room and you put it on the table there and you prop it up." I said, "Okay." So I waited for like 3 or 4 hours. So the producer come into the room and she goes, "Who's got the briefcase?" And I go, "I do." She goes, "Follow me." So I follow her through this little door. We walk in, and Vince McMahon's standing there, and he had all the divas in the back. He had Christy Hemme and all of them as a diva search. So I go up to the table, I put the briefcase down, and I lay it there, and Vince is sitting there looking at it, and he picks the briefcase up, and he's kind of says, "How do you open this goddamn thing?" You know how he is. So I walk over there, I open it up, I put the prop underneath, and I had it sitting there. So Vince is looking at it, and he goes, "We don't need a goddamn prop." He picks the prop up and throws it across the room. He goes, "I'll just hold it." So he holds the briefcase up with all the money in it, and he's talking about the $25,000 diva search. And when it was all over with, I mean, it took like 2 hours. It took them 2 hours, and those girls were back there getting antsy because some of them probably had to go to the bathroom. So he finally finished it up because he wanted everything. Vince, for one thing about Vince, he wants everything perfect. And that's him. Whenever he does something, it's got to be 100% perfect. And I've seen a lot of stuff that they did back there, but that was wow. So when it was all over with, they said, "Come get the briefcase, close it up." I follow them out the door. I go this way, they go that way. I give it to Dave. Dave opens it up, and they only used $1,200. Yeah, $1,200 out of the thing. Or it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, he used $900. So evidently, he gave me $500 out of the briefcase. So I got most of that money out of that briefcase. So I signed a little signature. But they took care of you, you know. You write your social security number down in case you had to be taxed at the end of the year if you ran over so much money. I think it was like $900. You know, if you got paid cash, and that's what the briefcase was for, to pay people in advance. If Flair needed advance in money, Flair would go up to Dave and ask him, "I need an advance in money," and Dave would pay him out of that briefcase and write it off his contract. That's how things would work as far as getting paid if you needed money right there.
Wow.
That's how that ended up working. So
So
but that was one of the stories.
my ass would have been trying to peel the $100 bills off the paper stacks that got glued together. You know.
Well, they came off. You just
Well, I was thinking, like, waste that?
So evidently he had 16 $100 bills. He used 12. So 4 of them I took back to him, gave it to him, and he gave me the 4. That's what it was. He gave me the $400 bills.
I mean, probably it seems like they owe you a lot more for everything you've done for them.
I've done quite a bit. You know, I was always nice and kind to the people, and they were all mostly nice to me, other than a couple. You know, I'm not going to name names, but
They lied behind your back.
yeah. But the nicest person I ever dealt with back there was Gene Snitsky. Always a super nice guy. Always down to earth like you and me. I mean, talk your ear off. Other than Rosie. Rosie was always nice. Rosie and me, we go way back. But Gene was really a super nice guy, you know. Out of everybody that I've met back there, in the back. You know, I met a lot of people, and I've never spoken to people unless they spoke to me. You know, that's what I was always taught. You know, don't say nothing unless you're spoken to. And when somebody came up to me and asked me, you know, I spoke to them. I never got an autograph back there. I got a picture one time with Dave, Earl, and Teddy because I knew them. They were good friends of mine, and Brian. It's the only time I ever got my picture taken backstage.
Wow.
So,
So, or deny, I've always read the guys are nicer guys.
but Bobby, you're cutting out. I can't hear you.
I say I can hear it echo on myself. But I've always read that the bad guys are the nicer guys behind the scenes.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You are right.
All right.
Bad guys are always the nicest.
The bad guys are the nicest.
How,
Usually that's how it works, huh?
How was it meeting Vincent Kennedy
I
McMahon? How
I
was it?
I briefly met him, probably about 4 times, and he knew who I was. He didn't know my name, but he knew who I was and who I was friends with. But it was a real quick handshake, and I went on my way. I really didn't want to go up to him because he's a businessman and wants to make money. So I was always back there. I kept myself busy. If they needed help carrying chairs, carrying boxes, putting a ring up, that's what I did backstage. Or babysat. I had to babysit some kids back there one day. I babysat Chris Benoit's kids and Earl's daughter, Katie, quite a few times in the back. Because Chris sometimes brought his kids back there, and I had to keep him occupied until he got done with his match. And he was always, you know, looking out for his kids, you know. And Katie, she was a piece of work. Oh my God, I used to have to put her on my shoulders, and she'd run in the back and slap hands with all the wrestlers. Which was kind of fun, you know.
Out of working with Impact and working with WWF, which one did you have a better time with, or which one was better to you?
I would probably say probably WWE years ago. Like I said, I worked with him. I did not get paid by a contract. I just went there on my own intentions and helped them. You know, I never had a contract, just to be
Right.
square with you guys. But probably WWE accepted you more than the other brand. You know, the simple reason it depends on who's running it. And like I says, the other person that was running that other TNA show at the time, he wasn't really nice. You know,
I'm gonna have to research and find out who that was. You know, find out who
I
got in
can
trouble
tell
for
you
the
who it is, but I'm not going to name names. You know,
I'll find out for myself.
he wasn't really nice. He wasn't nice at all.
I'll just wait and ask you on Saturday.
But everybody over at WWE or WWF before it was WWE, it was great. And when they went and switched to the other brand, everything just went the other way. I don't know why. Well, I sort of know what. I sort of kind of tell you what happened, but I'm not going to. But the WWE or WWF era was great. The WWE era, nothing like WWF. Nothing. You know.
Is it just because they went corporate? You know,
No. It's because somebody bought somebody out, and those people came in. If you know what I mean.
Okay.
And somebody had a problem with them. That's why he left and went to WWF or WWE at the time.
Ah.
So there was a big story behind it. I don't get in their business, you know.
Right.
Somebody told me what happened, and I leave it at that, you know. But it all happened again when they came in, and it all started all over for him again. Which I'm so glad that he got a promotion afterwards, after he got everything settled with them, with Vince. You know, things went his way, which they should have went his way. He was there before them.
Yeah.
It's like when he left, they followed him.
I hear what you're saying, player.
Yeah. Me and Teddy are really tight, really close, you know.
Do you still speak to Earl?
Yeah. Not as much as I used to because Earl's really a busy guy, and a lot of people don't know that he's got a handicapped daughter.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
she's really a super sweet girl, but he's got a lot of problems on his hand, and for them to do that to him years ago, that was just awful, absolutely terrible what they did to him.
I
You know,
still say that both of them need to go into the WWF Hall of Fame or WWE Hall of Fame.
they should, but and you know what? And to me, it's not really Vince's fault. It's people that he hired. You know, um, they're the ones who started all this stuff. Like I said, it wasn't Vince. Vince hired them, but it wasn't Dave and Earl's fault. Somebody was saying things about Dave and Earl because they were jealous, and they let them. They had to get them out of there and get them out of their way. And it all happened after 2001. Let's just put it that way. You know, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dave, because if Dave was sitting here right now, he'd tell you the same thing. You know,
Mm.
they all wanted his job, and I can name a few names, but I'm not going to name no names. But they wanted his job.
I don't
You
think
know,
there's a whole lot of people there that was from the beginning or pretty close to the beginning.
no, there ain't nobody left hardly. The only referee that was there when I was there is Chad Patton, which Chad is a really nice guy. Chad and I was really good friends with Chad and Jack. We always used to play wiffle ball before the show
So, yeah.
outside, and sometimes Triple H would step in and play, and some of the wrestlers would come in and bat a few bats and stuff, and we'd be throwing. And we'd have teams and stuff out there. It was kind of nice. You know, after we set the ring up and stuff, and I'd help out, we'd kill time. Or we all go to Walmart. You know, it'd be a Saturday, and we get to a town, and it'd be like noon, and then Earl and Dave goes, "Hey, let's all go to Walmart." So we all go to Walmart. We kill about 2 hours in Walmart. Sergeant Slaughter, we went with him. We all go to Walmart together.
Oh my God. Can you imagine just walking into Walmart, you see Sarge and
They were
the
all in there.
Hebners, and oh
And
my God, that'd be
at
crazy.
nighttime, you know, when the show was over with, we'd go to the next show. So it'd be like Saturday, and we go to Sunday to the pay-per-view, and we'd all be driving in a car. I think we were going from Columbus to Cincinnati, and there was a White Castle, and all I seen is an arm sticking out doing this. Not a White Castle, but a Steak and Shake. And the arm was doing this out the door, and it was Dave pulling over to Steak and Shake. So we'd all go into Steak and Shake and eat. So we usually go to Steak and Shake or go to Hooters at nighttime. That was our favorite places to eat.
You went there for the wings, right?
Yeah.
That's why we go for the wings.
Yep. They'd always get the oysters, and Dave
What?
Earl would scoop them oysters out and just eat those. No, I like fried oysters. I don't like raw oysters. I like oyster stew. I'll eat that, but I don't like them scooping out of the shell like they did.
Mhm.
That was their
Yeah,
favorite
I'm
thing.
not a big fan of slimy shit.
No,
No.
that was kind of nasty.
If it was fried, probably be a little bit better, a little easy, but no, screw that raw oyster shit.
That oyster Florentine looks like somebody snotted all over the show.
Yeah, it was kind of gross.
Yeah, it's
So,
nasty.
Nick, how long have you known Herb Simmons?
Oh God, Herb really didn't know me at first, but I knew of him. I know of Herb since 1985. I started going to some of the shows when he brought Brody in because Brody was king. He was my favorite. Me and my buddy Dwayne, we'd always go to Brody shows. Whenever Brody was on a card, we always go see Brody.
Oh,
So I
that's
probably
good.
went. I probably went to 3 of Herb's shows back, and I went to one over where he faced Abdullah Butcher. We went to
At the
Sparta,
Depot
Illinois,
show.
and then
Yeah.
we went to the CSMAC, which is down the road from my house. We've seen him over there at the CMAC. So I've probably been to about 3 or 4 of Herb's shows back in the day, back in the 80s.
So when did you start working for Herb?
I started working for Herb personally after we met in 2005 at my store personally, and I think it was 2009. when I started working for her, 2008. Then I left, and then I went to Broadway and worked there for 10 years almost. And then I went back over to Herb's again.
I wonder why. No.
I don't know. I wonder why. Jim.
We gonna spread some controversy again?
So back in the day, Earl and Dave knew that I did sewing and I was an embroiderer. So they were looking for another seamstress and at WWE years ago. And Earl asked me, he goes, I said, yeah, I sew every day. He goes, why? He goes, we need another seamstress here. So he goes, how much money do you make? I says, well, I make a lot. So he went and talked to Vince and had a meeting with Vince about getting a new seamstress. So Earl comes back to me and he goes, Vince wants to know how much money you want. I go, Earl, I make a lot of money. And at the time, I still did digitize. And I said, Earl, I bring in over $250,000 a year. He goes, what the fuck, man? You make more than me, my brother. Come on. I go up. I said, I would love to have that job, but no. Yeah, it was just at the time. But I'm glad I didn't, you know.
Well, it just seems like the atmosphere, it wouldn't have been a right fit for you at the time.
No, not really. And there was somebody there that didn't like me anyway. I think I was getting in their way because I was really that close to Dave and Earl, and he used to tour with Dave and Earl also, always in the vehicle with them. And he really didn't care for me that much. And when all that stuff went down, he badmouthed me to Vince, said that I was a thief and a drug dealer. I had never smoked a marijuana cigarette in my life. The only thing I ever taken was one aspirin or maybe a couple vitamins, you know. And
All the rest
somebody
was
told
just
me I was a
coke
drug dealer and stuff like that.
heroin,
I didn't even know what drugs are, you know. I couldn't tell you what was what. And a thief. But come to find out, he was nothing but a snitch. I don't think he's there anymore, but you know, but those are the kind of people you have to deal with when you go to places like that. If you ever get a good contract, you got to watch out for people. Nothing but backstabbers, and it's everywhere you go. You know, even with my shop, my store. You know, and that was part of the deal. Somebody that I thought that was my friend went back, and it got back to me. Went back and called WWE offices, and that's when all that shit started. You know, it was nothing but jealousy. Let's just put it that way. You know, I'm not jealous of anybody. I'm for props if anybody made it. You know.
Yeah.
But just some people are different. I'm not like that though. You know.
I do have a quick question that's a little bit off topic, and I want to ask before I forget. Right around 2,000 people have seen you get crushed by Kowalski and Jim.
Oh
How much
yeah.
did that hurt?
it took the breath out of me for sure. I think it was mostly Kowalski's because I think he tripped accidentally. I think he did. I mean, I felt my shoulder blade grind in the back of the turnbuckle.
Yeah,
Hey,
because
I'm gonna tell the viewers out there.
yeah,
You know,
if you
people might
watch it, you start falling backwards.
people might
So
say
it
this
wasn't
and
a
that.
clean hit.
Yeah, I've been hurt in that ring several times. You know, and it was accidental, but I've been hurt in that ring 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, bad. That wasn't one of them. I mean, I got kicked in the ear. I've got shoulder tackled. You know, whiplash. You know, on the bottom of the rope. I got drop kicked in the thigh for real. I broke my leg. So people want to say something. You do get hurt in the ring. Well, you know that. How many times have you been? Bobby's been hurt in the ring. You know, quite a few times.
So, have you ever thought of using goggles, like some better glasses?
I got some right here.
Those are bear goggle glasses. You can't fool me. No.
You're right.
Nick, last week we interviewed James Beard, and he was a ref from back in the day.
Yeah, I know he is.
Still
Yeah.
continues to ref, but he's currently on book number 2 already wrote one book.
Uh-huh.
When are we going to see the book from Nick? Because you have so many stories. And prior to this podcast, you told me you had so many pictures.
Oh God, I got so many pictures. Oh my, that's what we did when we were younger, though. I can admit that when we were 16, I got a camera for my 16th birthday. My mom paid $4 for it. You know, that was my birthday present. Ever since I would kind of like scrape up nickels and dimes and get the Kodak film, and me and my buddy Dwayne would just constantly shoot pictures. And when I went in college, I had a photography class, and that's all I did was shoot pictures. I've got so many pictures, you know. I've got stuff with, I mean, really good portraits of like Bulldog Bob Brown and Harley. I mean, close-ups. I don't have the negatives anymore, but I got all the nice colored photos that we took years ago. You know, I've got a lot of pictures.
Oh,
So
again, when are we going to see the book of Nick? When,
I don't know.
the
It costs money to
tabletop
make a
picture
book.
book?
It costs a lot of money to make a book.
Yeah. But if the pictures are high quality and good ones, you can make some money back.
I know you could. You could make. I could make some money back. I got a lot of stories. A lot of stories.
There's an book publishing thing a lot easier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're still cutting in and out. I couldn't hear anything you said.
He said there's a
I was
book
saying there's
publishing
an
program that makes it a lot easier.
Amazon publishing like for books now. All you got to do is write.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Amazon does that.
Oh, do
He said
they?
Amazon has a way for you to do it where all you have to do is write it and they'll publish it through Amazon.
Wow.
Huh.
That's good. But I would like to put out there, though, you know, growing up as a kid, you know, we never had anything. You know, mom and dad didn't have any money. My dad didn't make that much money. My dad fought in World War II in Korea, and he lost an eye in Korea, which caused him not to get a very good job. You know, he worked at ADT for 35 years. He was a service alarm investigator. And my dad made under $200 a week, and he had to support 11 people under $200 a week. So we didn't get allowances. We didn't get nothing. My thing growing up was watching Wrestling at the Chase on the black and white TV. That was my thing, you know. And it became my dream as a kid growing up. You know, I wanted to be a part of that. And my dream almost came true. Well, it did come true because I worked with her. I'm a referee. But if you really put your mind to it, you know, you can make dreams happen. You know, I worked really hard for what I have. I worked really hard for this Hall of Fame to get this going with very little funds. You know, that was all on my pocket. I bought all the plaques. I paid for everything. Larry and Herb kind of orchestrated me to get this thing going, you know, especially Herb. And I'm working to continue for the Hall of Fame to grow. And that's my thing right now is the Hall of Fame. You know, keeping it going, keeping a dream alive, and keeping the legacy alive from 59 to 83. You know,
Yeah.
that was my thing growing up. I never missed a Wrestling at the Chase episode from 1970 to 1983. I seen every single one, and I was there. Luckily, I was there for a couple of them because you had to be 16 to go. But luckily, I got to go because my wrestling coach and junior coach, Lee, got me in towards the end. You know, but I got to go. It was one of my things.
That's awesome. Well, on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and end this. Man,
Okay.
It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, same thing here. Nice to see you
It's well
all.
over an hour's worth of time. But we would love to probably have you back on and tell some of those road stories that you have that you said
I
that you have a
know.
bunch.
There's a lot. I was like that little mouse in the corner that seen everything.
That
Well,
would be
episode 2
awesome.
is going to be Nick's story time.
Yeah.
We can actually just cut out a little time every episode for you to just tell a story. We'll bring you in 5 minutes before close and just have you tell it.
All right, sounds good to me.
Well, we could do it Saturdays before the match. We'll just sit in the ring and tell stories.
Sounds good to me.
Well, definitely appreciate you, coming on the podcast. I know you didn't have to.
Oh, anytime.
definitely let's try to get something worked out where we can get a petition. I think you did it before. We're trying to get a petition to get the Hebners into the Hall of Fame. We should
Yeah.
definitely get something going on for that because they were there through all the key moments. And
They
there's
were
no reason
absolutely.
why.
They helped build it.
And let me put something out there. And it was all because of lies and stuff of them. And like I says, them guys never stole a damn thing in their life. They had plenty of money. I got plenty of money at the time. I earned over $250,000 a year. But I want to steal a shirt. Big freaking
Right.
deal. I've got big contracts out there. And those guys were the most honest guys there. And it's because some jealous son of a gun there was jealous of them two guys. And they had to make up lies to get them out of there. And they had to go to their boss and tell them bad things about Earl. And then they start trash mouthing me. I don't even know them, But that's how this industry is. You know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, I figure the way that it'll happen is grassroots plus legends plus the currents pushing them to allow it before the sale goes through to Endeavor. Because what I heard is there's still sticking points for WWE being taken over by Endeavor.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you heard recently, but evidently his house, McMahon's house, just got raided. They had a warrant for all his stuff, and then magically he had surgery, so now he's out of the office until he's better. But no one knows what surgery he's had, so they're thinking that was just an excuse to get him out of the office to kind of clear some of this air before he can go back. But we'll see. I'm sure it'll all come out eventually.
Oh, they
All
hate
about
us
this hush
anyway.
money. Kind of crazy.
It is crazy. Wrestling world's being shooken up again.
Yeah. But all right.
Well, hold on. Before we go, we got a show this Saturday, August the 12th. What's your prediction for the main event?
Who's the main event?
Oh.
LA Hustlers against Bobby D and the Texans.
Oh, I think these guys here.
Ah,
Texan is going to give him that mean lariat and going to take him out.
There we go. And me and Bobby has this combination that we do, so it's pretty good.
It is. You guys are a good
Done it
team.
once already, so
Yeah, great
should be
team.
very interesting.
See, my goal is to have all the gold on our podcast. None of it owned by me.
Sounds good. I have that original belt. I have the original world belt that the Texans got, the Hall of Fame belt. There was two of those made. Initially, I was putting that together, and Herb seen it, and Herb goes, "Oh my God, I want one of them." So I said, "I'll make you a copy of one." So I made Herb a copy. So
Yeah, we just
got the
gotta
belt.
when
add
these
another
two
plate
win,
onto it. And
yep, need another plate.
add
When these
another
two
plate,
win,
get some more names on it.
Yeah, well, I'm in process of getting another one made. Probably going to get two because Herb's probably going to want another one.
Right, right.
So we have to put. I think I have to add like 8 more names to that somehow.
Well, but before you get made, you might as well add next year's on there too, so you can be a year ahead.
Well, I have to talk to Herb about that.
I'm going to have to give you money so I can have one made for me to put back here because these guys will have all the gold and I'll have nothing but this.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, like always, we always end it. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, comment, share it, get it out to the world so we can continue. But definitely comment so we know what direction to go. If you guys like the content, give us a holler on that. If you don't like it, let us know so we know to change things up. Or, if we need to kick Bobby out of the group, that's fine. We just need to know this kind of stuff. But again, thank you, Nick, for coming on.
Oh, anytime.
Love to have you back. But
One more thing, Jim.
oh my God, what,
One
Nick?
more thing.
Come on.
Everybody that's watching, go to Herb's and the SICW site, all the social media, and request for Matt Cardona and Gil Rogers to wrestle at the Expo.
All right. On that note, we out. Thank you guys. Until next week, we're gonna have another special guest. We'll give a little hint probably later this week and let you guys know who it'll be. But on that, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you Saturday at the show.
See
Take
you
care,
at the
guys.
show. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you.
Take care.